At the edge of a primeval forest, long before the written word, a small group of our ancestors gazes up at the night sky in wonder. Above them, countless stars shimmer like a river of light, an eternal map that has guided life for generations. They notice patterns in the heavens, the steady dance of the sun, the changing face of the moon, and the slow drift of star patterns marking the passage of seasons. In these distant times, knowledge of the sky is more than curiosity. It is survival and sacred truth, a cosmic rhythm that governs when to sow and when to harvest, when the rains will come and when the winter will bite. Humanity's first steps towards civilization are lit by celestial light, and the sky becomes our oldest calendar, storybook, and compass all at once. In time, these early people yearn to bring the rhythms of the heavens down to earth. They begin to mark the movements of celestial bodies with stone and wood, creating the first simple observatories. On open plains under the endless sky, rings of posts or rough-hewn stones take shape, each placed with care to mirror the sky's design. Through patient observation, they align these markers to points on the horizon where the sun rises or sets at the solstices. At midwinter, when the longest night gives way to dawn, the sun peeks through a gap between stones, reassuring the gathered tribe that the light will return. At midsummer, on the year's longest day, dawn's first glow might shine straight down a cleared avenue in the wild grass, heralding the season of warmth and abundance. These humble circles and alignments become sacred ground, open-air temples where earth and sky meet, places of communion with the cosmos. Across continents, evidence of this cosmic impulse appears. In the Sahara Desert, at a place now called Nabta Playa, nomadic herders 6,000 years ago arranged stones to align with the rising of the midsummer sun, heralding the return of life-giving rains. Far to the north in Europe, early farmers built circular earthworks, one at Gossec in Germany around the same time, with gates precisely framing the winter solstice sunrise and sunset. Even without writing or modern instruments, these ancient people could track the great solar turning points of the year and sanctify them in earth and stone. As centuries passed and societies grew, their celestial monuments became more ambitious, evolving from humble circles into great mounds of earth and stone, built with deeper purpose. On a green isle, at the edge of the Western Sea, one community raised such a mound, precisely aligned to welcome the reborn sun on the darkest dawn of the year. In this sacred place, the interplay of light and darkness would take on profound new meaning. On a frosty morning in deep winter, a hush falls over a grassy hill overlooking a broad river valley. A massive mound of earth and stone rises from the hillside, its entrance facing southeast toward the pale hint of dawn. For over a month, the sun has been creeping ever lower on the horizon each morning. But today is the winter solstice. The longest night has just passed. In the stillness before sunrise, a small group of villagers and elders gather at the threshold of the mound, their breaths fogging in the cold air, waiting for a sign that the darkness will relent. Slowly, the first rays of the sun break over the horizon. A narrow beam of golden light shoots into a small opening above the mound's doorway, an opening known to us now as the roof box. Inside the mound, a long stone passageway stretches into darkness. As the sun climbs higher, the beam travels down the 19-meter corridor, creeping further into the gloom and beginning to illuminate the chamber. After a year of absence, the sun's pale beam finally reaches the heart of the monument, illuminating a stone chamber that has lain in darkness since the last winter solstice. Carved spirals and patterns on the ancient stones glow in the sudden light, as if coming alive. For 17 precious minutes, a shaft of sunlight bathes the chamber in a golden glow. The gathered people watch in reverence as the darkness of the tomb is vanquished by a living light. In this moment, inside a monument built for the dead, the sun is reborn. One can imagine the awe and relief that sweep through those present, a reassurance that the cycles of nature still turn, that light and life will return after the cold and gloom of winter. The rays illuminate not only the stones, but the spirits of the people, renewing their hope for the coming year. This great mound is known today as Newgrange. Over 5,000 years old, it was built by Neolithic people in Ireland, long before the pyramids of Egypt, or Stonehenge, rose from the earth. From the outside, Newgrange appears as a large, rounded hill, ringed by giant curbstones etched with mysterious symbols, spirals, lozenges, and arcs. Within, a narrow stone passage leads to a central chamber with a high, corbelled roof, crafted from stacked stones that curve inward to form a beehive-like dome. This inner sanctum, shaped like a cross with 3 small alcoves, once held the cremated remains of ancestors, giving Newgrange the outward form of a tomb. But it is a tomb built to capture sunlight, a place where the dead and the sun meet on the year's darkest day. The alignment of Newgrange to the winter solstice sunrise is astonishingly precise. Each year, for just a few days, around December 21st, the rising sun's rays enter exactly through the roof box to reach the inner chamber. The people who built Newgrange had to understand the sun's seasonal journey across the sky and design their monument so that at the exact moment of midwinter dawn, the passage would catch the sunlight. They likely observed sunrise points on the horizon over many years, marking where the winter sun appeared. The construction itself demanded immense labour, moving an estimated 200,000 tons of earth and stone without metal tools or the wheel. Yet they achieved a masterpiece of astronomy and engineering that still works its magic 5 millennia later. Even today, when the weather permits, the midwinter sunbeam still finds its way to the chamber's heart, connecting us with those ancient sky watchers across time. For the builders of Newgrange, this event was surely more than just a clever trick of engineering. It was deeply spiritual. The returning sunbeam may have symbolized the spark of life rekindled in the depths of winter, a promise that spring would come again. By designing a tomb that floods with light, they may have been expressing a belief in rebirth, the sun's rebirth each year, and perhaps the rebirth of souls. In the darkness of the chamber lay the remains of their dead. When the golden light poured in, it was as if the sun itself entered the tomb to awaken the ancestors and renew the land. This fusion of solar astronomy with ritual suggests that these ancient people saw the cosmos and the cycle of life as intimately intertwined. On the enormous entrance stone of Newgrange, swirling designs are carved deep into the rock. Most striking is a motif of 3 interlocking spirals. No written records remain to explain its meaning, but one can imagine it symbolizing cycles, perhaps life, death, and rebirth, or the rolling cycles of the sun and seasons. As the first light enters the tomb, these carved spirals catch the glow, as if the symbol itself were coming alive with the sun. The art and the astronomy of Newgrange together speak of a culture attuned to nature's rhythms and the mysteries of existence. In the Boyne Valley, where Newgrange stands, it is not alone. Nearby, other great mounds, Noath and Douth, form part of this sacred landscape. They too have alignments. Noath's passages are said to catch the equinox, sunrise and sunset, and Douth's chamber aligns with the setting winter sun. This suggests an entire complex of monuments built as a grand cosmic clock, marking different turning points of the year. The people here invested extraordinary effort to build these earth and stone calendars, which also served as ceremonial centres and eternal houses for their dead. It's as if the whole landscape was orchestrated to the music of the heavens. Newgrange stands as one of the earliest and most powerful examples of humanity's desire to bind the earth to the sky. 5,000 years ago, on Europe's Atlantic fringe, people who had only stone tools managed to construct a monument that still accurately heralds the solstice sunrise. The feat is astonishing, a blend of ritual, art, and astronomical precision. As the golden beam pierces the darkness each winter, we are reminded that even at the dawn of architecture, our ancestors built with the cosmos in mind. Having captured the winter sun in a tomb of stone, the journey of ancient cosmic architecture would continue. Further east, under the open skies of another land, a circle of standing stones would rise to greet the sun, not in the dead of winter, but in the full glory of summer. In an open plain of wind-swept grass, far from the Boyne Valley, a different monument of stone emerges to meet the turning of the sun. Here on Salisbury Plain, in what is now England, a great circle of standing stones crowns the landscape. It is early morning on the summer solstice. The sky is a soft purple blue, and a long band of people have gathered among the towering stones, awaiting sunrise. For these people of the late Neolithic age, this may be the most important dawn of the year, the day when the sun reaches its highest power, and the whole world of light seems to stand still for a moment. As the first light grows in the east, all eyes turn toward a single outlying stone set apart from the circle, the heel stone. The sun's crimson rim breaks the horizon directly above this stone. In that instant, a spear of sunlight shoots across the plain, streaming through the circle's entrance and into its heart, casting long shadows between the monolithic pillars. The tallest trilithons, the great stone doorways that stand within the circle, catch the light, their towering forms glowing in the dawn. The crowd erupts in celebration. The sun has arrived at its appointed place, perfectly framed by the ancient stones. Summer has officially begun. The place is Stonehenge, perhaps the most famous megalithic circle in the world. Its outer ring once held dozens of enormous upright stones, each weighing up to 25 tons, capped by lintels, forming a continuous circle of giant arches. Inside stands a horseshoe arrangement of 5 grand trilithons, pairs of uprights topped with massive horizontal stones, facing the direction of the midsummer sunrise. Around the perimeter, other stones and earthen banks complete the complex, an encircling ditch and mound, and at some distance, the heel stone that marks where the solstice sun emerges. Stonehenge was not built all at once. Its construction spanned centuries, evolving through different phases. But by about 2500 BC, it became what we see today, an awe-inspiring open-air temple aligned to the heavens. To create Stonehenge, its builders undertook immense feats of effort and organisation. Some stones, the larger sarsens, were hauled from nearly 20 miles away, likely dragged on sledges and rollers by hundreds of people. Others, the smaller bluestones, came from over 150 miles away in the mountains of Wales. An astonishing journey for multi-ton boulders, using only human power. Once on site, each stone had to be stood upright and carefully placed. The lintels were lifted to rest atop pairs of uprights, fitted with carved joints, like a giant woodworking project in stone. The very act of raising this circle suggests a society with the will and knowledge to mobilize labor over long distances, all in service of a cosmic design. Why did they undertake such an extraordinary project? Part of the answer lies in Stonehenge's alignment. The entire monument is oriented along a specific axis that points to the sunrise at the summer solstice and the sunset at the winter solstice. On the longest day, as we saw, the sun rises in perfect line with the heel stone and the gap in the circle. On the shortest day, if one stands in the centre of Stonehenge and looks toward the largest trilithon, the sun sets framed between those massive stones. It's as though Stonehenge was built to celebrate and observe the sun's extreme positions, the turning points of the year when the sun seems to pause in its journey along the horizon. Stonehenge's celestial purpose may not end with the sun. There are indications its layout also aligns with the cycles of the moon. A series of 4 station stones at the site appear to mark the limits of the moon's rise and set during an 18.6-year cycle, known as the major lunar standstill. At these rare times, the moon reaches its most extreme northern and southern points on the horizon, and Stonehenge's geometry might have been intended to capture that event as well. If true, it means the builders were tracking not only the annual dance of the sun, but also the subtle, long-term rhythms of the moon. To grasp an 18.6-year cycle would have required observations passed down over generations, a testament to their patient sky-watching and accumulated knowledge. Imagine the gatherings that might have taken place here. Evidence suggests that people from distant regions of Britain travelled to Stonehenge at certain times of year, likely for ceremonial feasts and rituals. Archaeologists have found thousands of animal bones, especially from pigs and cattle, indicating grand feasts, particularly around midwinter. It seems that the winter solstice, when the sun set between the stones on the year's longest night, was a key moment of reunion and celebration. Perhaps communities gathered to mark the sun's rebirth after the long darkness, feasting and honouring the turning of the year. The monument stones, warmed by bonfires and surrounded by music or prayer, would have witnessed these ancient festivals of light in the depths of winter. Over the long ages, Stonehenge's exact purpose and the beliefs of its builders have faded into mystery. By the time recorded history begins in Britain, the stones were already ancient, inspiring myths and legends. Medieval storytellers imagined giants or wizards like Merlin had built it. Later, it was thought to be a druid temple, a notion that captured the popular imagination, though Stonehenge predates the druids by millennia. The truth is, we will never fully know the intentions behind every aspect of Stonehenge. But standing among those weathered monoliths today, one feels a profound connection to an ancient vision, a desire to frame the cosmos in human terms, to build something lasting and monumental that resonates with the movements of sun and sky. As the sunlit mornings of Stonehenge gave ancient people a cosmic stage for their rituals, elsewhere another civilization was gazing skyward from atop its own towering structures. Leaving behind the green plains of Neolithic England, we travel to the cradle of civilization, where the night sky above Mesopotamia was charted with meticulous care. In the land of Babylon, people did not just align monuments to the sun, they built great tiered temples reaching upward, and on those heights they mapped and interpreted the stars. The story of cosmic architecture now turns to a city of legendary gardens and ziggurats, and to the birth of the zodiac. A warm breeze drifts over the flat roofs of Babylon as the last light of day fades. One by one, stars pierce the twilight above the city, and soon the heavens glitter with constellations. Rising above the mud brick houses and palm groves is a massive stepped pyramid temple. A ziggurat, its silhouette looming against the starry sky. At its summit, a small shrine flickers with torchlight. Here, high above the bustle of the streets, Babylonian priests keep watch on the night sky, seeking divine messages in the movements of the stars and planets. The ziggurat is the sacred mountain of Babylon. Made of millions of sun-dried bricks, it towers in layered terraces, each level smaller than the one below, creating a stairway shape climbing toward the heavens. Its name in the local tongue is Etemenanki, meaning house of the foundation of heaven and earth. It is dedicated to Marduk, Babylon's patron god, and soars perhaps 7 stories high. Climbing its steep steps brings one closer to the sky than anywhere else in the city, a vantage point to observe the stars unhindered by the dust and noise below. In the stillness of night, a priest astronomer might ascend to the top, as if approaching the realm of the gods, and carefully note the positions of the celestial bodies. The people of ancient Mesopotamia were among the first astronomers. For centuries, Babylonian scribes systematically observed the heavens and recorded the risings of planets, the timing of eclipses, and the cycles of the moon on clay tablets. In fact, much of what we know as astrology, interpreting celestial events as messages for human affairs, began here. The Babylonians identified patterns in the stars and imagined them as figures: a bull, a lion, a scorpion, a set of scales, and others. These became the constellations of the zodiac, the band of 12 star groups through which the sun, moon, and planets travel. By dividing the sky into 12 equal parts, each assigned to a constellation, they created a heavenly calendar that would influence civilizations for millennia to come. Picture a Babylonian scholar crouched over a clay tablet by lamplight, drawing symbols of the zodiac. He knows that the sun will travel into the constellation of the Ram, Aries, in the spring, bringing new growth, or into the constellation of the Scorpion in the fall, a time of dying and retreat. To the people of Babylon, these movements are more than astronomical. They are laden with omens and meaning. An eclipse might foretell the fall of a king. The appearance of a comet or a rare alignment of planets might be read as a message from the gods. Each constellation of the zodiac is associated with specific deities and influences. By reading the sky, the priests believe they are reading the divine script set by the gods. Babylon's star watchers achieved remarkable feats. They could predict eclipses by recognizing repeating cycles. They identified an 18-year cycle, the Saros cycle, that governs eclipses. They tracked the wandering of planets like Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and noted patterns in their appearances. By the later period of Babylonian astronomy, they had even developed methods to calculate where a planet would be in the zodiac months or years into the future. Such knowledge was closely guarded and highly valued. Kings consulted these astronomer priests for guidance. The ziggurat observatories were not just temples, but early scientific centers where careful observation met spiritual interpretation. The ziggurats themselves were embodiments of cosmic order. They were built with sides aligned to the cardinal directions, anchoring them to the 4 quarters of the earth, and rising upward in tiers, like a stairway, connecting earth to sky. Some scholars think the 7 levels of certain ziggurats corresponded to the 7 celestial bodies known at the time: the sun, the moon, and the 5 visible planets. Each level perhaps painted a different colour for its patron planet. True or not, the ziggurat clearly symbolized a bridge between humanity and the divine, between the ground and the firmament. In biblical tradition, the tale of the Tower of Babel was likely inspired by one of these colossal structures, humanity's attempt to reach heaven. In Babylon, That attempt was not hubris, but devotion, a way to be closer to the gods and to observe their handiwork in the sky. One can imagine a clear night atop the Babylonian ziggurat. A priest stands by a parapet, consulting a star chart etched on a tablet. Above him, the brilliant planet Venus has just risen in the constellation of the Twins, and he makes a careful note on his clay tablet. Far below, the city sleeps. But up here, there is only the silent sky and the faint crackle of a torch. In a soft, melodic voice, he might recite an incantation or prayer to the gods of the night. Perhaps he is asking for insight. Will the harvest be plentiful? Will the king be victorious in battle? He believes the answers lie written among the stars. Each twinkling light is a character in a celestial script, and by reading them, he links the fate of his people to the cosmos above. Babylon's legacy in cosmic knowledge was profound. The division of the sky into 12 zodiacal signs and the practice of casting horoscopes were adopted by the Greeks and spread around the world. The precise observations of Babylonian astronomers also paved the way for the later science of astronomy. Yet for all their careful tracking of heavenly cycles, the Babylonians never separated it from spiritual meaning. To them, the sky was alive with portent and divinity, a grand conversation between gods and humans. Their great ziggurats stood as physical embodiments of that connection, part temple, part observatory. In these structures, we see the meeting of architecture, astronomy, and faith in one of the world's earliest civilizations. While Babylon's priests were charting the stars in clay, across the desert to the west, another great civilization was building in harmony with the cosmos. Along the banks of the Nile in ancient Egypt, colossal pyramids rose from the earth like man-made mountains. They too were carefully aligned to the cardinal directions and attuned to the stars above. In Egypt's sky, one constellation shone with special significance: Orion, representing Osiris, the god of rebirth and eternal life. It is to Egypt that our journey now turns, to explore how the pharaohs crafted their own celestial architecture, pyramids that might have been laid out as reflections of the stars. The midnight air over the Giza plateau is cool and still. 3 giant pyramids loom in silhouette against the sky, under a firmament of countless stars. Toward the south, just above the horizon, the constellation Orion strides across the heavens, a familiar figure to the ancient Egyptians, representing their god Osiris. 3 stars in Orion's belt form a short diagonal line. On the ground, the 3 pyramids of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure seem to mirror those stars, with 2 aligned and the smallest offset to the side, just as in Orion's belt. It is as if the architects of these monuments arranged them as a map of the sky. Even in daylight, the cosmic precision of these pyramids is striking. The sides of the Great Pyramid of Khufu are oriented almost perfectly to the 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west. This level of accuracy, achieved around 2500 BC, suggests the Egyptians had a method to find true north, likely by observing stars near the north celestial pole. But beyond the orientations of each pyramid, some believe the positions of the pyramids relative to each other carry a deeper meaning. The slight offset of the smallest pyramid of Menkaure, compared to the line of Khufu and Khafra, calls to mind the pattern of Orion's belt in the sky. According to the Orion correlation theory, the pyramid layout was intended to reflect Orion's belt as it appeared in the heavens of ancient times. The resemblance is compelling. 2 large pyramids diagonal to each other, and a 3rd smaller one off to the side, matching the arrangement of Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka. Proponents of this theory even point out that around 10,500 BC, long before the pyramids were built, Orion's belt was oriented in a way that more closely matches the ground layout, suggesting, in their view, that the design memorialized a golden age or creation time. Whether this was truly the intention of the pyramid builders remains uncertain, and many Egyptologists are skeptical. Yet the idea captures the imagination, that the pharaoh's grand tombs were laid out as a deliberate image of the heavens, an earthly reflection of the sky. Beyond the ground plan, the Egyptians built the stars into the pyramid's interiors. The Great Pyramid contains narrow shafts angling out from the chambers toward the outer sky. These shafts were long a mystery, but they align with specific stars. Around 2500 BC, the southern shaft from the king's chamber pointed toward the belt of Orion, and the southern shaft from the queen's chamber aimed toward Sirius, the brightest star, sacred to Isis. Meanwhile, one of the northern shafts targeted Thuban, in the constellation Draco, which was the North Pole star of that epoch. It appears these were not ventilation shafts at all, but rather star channels, symbolic pathways for the pharaoh's soul. Through them, the spirit of the king could ascend to join Orion, and thus Osiris, or travel to Sirius, the star of Isis, or take its place among the circumpolar stars that never set. Each destination was cosmically significant: Orion and Sirius for divine rebirth, and the circumpolar, imperishable stars for eternity. In the religion of ancient Egypt, the afterlife of the pharaoh was entwined with the stars. Inscriptions inside later pyramids, the pyramid texts, describe the king rising into the sky to live among the imperishable stars. They speak of him joining Orion, of his soul flying up on the wings of the sky. To the Egyptians, the sky was a destination for the divine part of the pharaoh. The pyramids, therefore, were more than monumental tombs. They were launch pads for a star-bound soul. By aligning with Orion, the pharaoh could join the company of Osiris. By pointing to the north, he could ascend to the eternal, undying stars that never disappeared below the horizon. The pyramid was an engine of transformation, from a flesh and blood ruler to an everlasting star in the night sky. To achieve these alignments, the Egyptians demonstrated astonishing skill. The Great Pyramid's sides are aligned to true north with an error of only a tiny fraction of a degree. This likely was accomplished by careful star observations, for instance, watching a pair of stars rotate around the pole and bisecting their transit to find north. Whatever their method, the result is clear. Each side of the pyramid aligns almost exactly with north, south, east, and west. The precision is such that we must conclude it was intentional and significant. Each pyramid is anchored to the cardinal directions, and the entire Giza complex is laid out methodically on the plateau. The very design emphasizes order. Even the shape of the pyramid, a four-sided triangle rising to a point, might have evoked the sun's rays. Some texts speak of the pharaoh climbing the rays of the sun to reach the sky. The word for pyramid, mer, likely conveyed the idea of ascension. Everything about these structures suggests they were conceived as cosmic instruments to ensure the pharaoh's immortality. Egyptian builders carried the tradition of celestial alignment beyond the Giza pyramids. Temples throughout Egypt often aligned with the sun or stars. At Abu Simbel, the great temple of Ramses II is angled such that twice a year, near the equinoxes, the rising sun's rays penetrate the sanctuary and illuminate the statues of the gods within. At Karnak in Thebes, the temple of Amun is oriented to the midwinter solstice sunrise, funneling the first light of that day down its grand processional way. Many temples were connected with Sirius as well, since Sirius's annual rising signaled the life-giving flood of the Nile. Temples dedicated to the goddess Isis, with whom Sirius was associated, often faced the point on the horizon where that star would appear. The Egyptian calendar itself began each year with the first dawn rising of Sirius. In tombs, ceilings were painted with constellations and star clocks. All of this reflects a worldview in which the terrestrial and the celestial mirrored each other. The pharaoh on his throne was the sun on its heavenly throne. The Nile was the Milky Way's earthly counterpart. To maintain Ma'at, the divine order, the Egyptians aligned their lives and monuments with the regular patterns of the cosmos. Imagine standing before the Great Pyramid in its prime. In the bright sun of midday, its white limestone casing stones shine so brilliantly that it is almost difficult to look at. At its apex glints what may be a capstone sheathed in electrum or gold, a gleaming pyramidion catching the sunlight, a daytime star. Now imagine twilight falling. The capstone dims to a glow, and above, the sky darkens to deep blue. One by one, the stars emerge. Orion rises in the east, and the planet Venus sparkles above the western horizon. The three pyramids below now lie in shadow, but their shape mirrors the sky's new jewels. In that moment, it is easy to feel the ancient Egyptians' vision. These pyramids are like a conduit, pulling the patterns of the sky down to earth. In their stillness, they speak of eternity, just as the stars above do. In their precise alignments, they remind us that even as empires fade, the great rhythms of the cosmos endure. The pyramids of Giza have stood for 45 centuries, the last surviving wonders of the ancient world, silently tracking the cycles of sun and star. They inspire us not just because of their size, but because they represent an ancient unity of science, art, and spirituality. We marvel that an early civilization could chart the heavens and move mountains of stone to reflect that knowledge. When standing among these colossi at nightfall, as Orion's belt glitters above, one can almost hear the voices of the Old Kingdom priests and architects. They seem to speak in the language of alignment and light, saying, "Look, we too are part of the cosmos. We built in harmony with the sky, so that our kings might live forever among the stars." From Newgrange's sunlit tomb and Stonehenge's solar circle, to Babylon's star towers and Egypt's stellar pyramids, each site shows a facet of humanity's timeless quest. Each is a temple of the stars, joining earth to sky. For all we have seen, from the green hills of Ireland and the plains of England to the banks of the Euphrates and the Nile, the story of ancient cosmic architecture is far from complete. Other civilizations across the world also gazed at the heavens and built their own monuments to mirror the cosmos. On distant continents, in jungles and high mountains unknown to those early architects, people would raise pyramids, temples, and observatories aligned with the sun and stars, guided by the same human yearning to connect with the cosmos. Our journey through these temples of the stars is not yet over. Ahead, new wonders await as we venture to far corners of the ancient world to uncover more of humanity's timeless cosmic knowledge. Night gently falls over the ancient world we have wandered, and as the stars appear overhead, they invite us onward to new horizons. Our journey now leads us from the classical temples of the West into lands where dawn's first light awakens stones set to the rhythms of the cosmos. Under the same sky, far to the east, another civilization waits, cradling its own ancient secrets of sun and stars. In the soft pre-dawn hush, a faint glow blooms on the horizon, heralding the approach of the sun in a distant land. We find ourselves in the Indian subcontinent, where temples and altars were designed as grand instruments to measure and honor the heavens. A cool breeze sweeps over a silent stone temple, carrying the scent of night-blooming flowers. All around lies stillness, as if the world itself holds its breath for the dawn. Darkness begins to soften. The eastern sky grows pale gold. Carved pillars and giant stone wheels gradually emerge from shadow, revealing a temple shaped like a colossal chariot, eternally poised to carry the sun across the heavens. This is a shrine devoted to Surya, the sun god, and its very design welcomes the morning. At the first glimmer of sunrise, a shaft of light travels down the temple's central axis. It pierces the entrance and floods the inner sanctum with a gentle radiance, illuminating where the deity once stood. For centuries, devotees and curious travelers alike have gathered to witness this celestial event. Here at Konark, on India's eastern coast, the Temple of the Sun was built over 700 years ago in the form of Surya's chariot, complete with 7 mighty stone horses and 24 elaborately carved wheels. Every dawn, the temple greets the sun as it rises over the Bay of Bengal. On equinox mornings, when day and night stand equal, the alignment is perfect. The sun's first rays roll through the temple like a golden wheel, striking the sanctuary precisely. In these moments, one can almost feel an ancient dialogue between stone and sunlight, a silent prayer of illumination cast in rays and shadows. In Hindu lore, the sun is not just a burning star, but a living deity riding across the sky. Surya is said to travel in a radiant chariot drawn by 7 horses, one for each day of the week. As dawn breaks, he emerges from the eastern horizon, bringing light and dispelling darkness. At dusk, he descends in the west, only to journey through the underworld at night and rise anew by morning. The temple at Konark embodies this myth in stone. Its 12 pairs of wheels suggest the months of the year, and the spokes mark the divisions of the day. In carving and concept, it is both calendar and chariot, capturing time and motion in the stillness of rock. Each wheel's spokes double as a sundial. A person can place a finger at the wheel's center and see the time indicated by the shadow on the carved segments, accurate to a fraction of an hour. All along the temple walls, intricate reliefs celebrate life under the sun. Celestial musicians, dancers frozen in mid-step, and mythical creatures, all carved with exquisite detail. Local legend whispers that Konark's creation itself was guided by divine intervention. It is said that Samba, the son of the god Krishna, once suffered from an illness and prayed to Surya for a cure. When he was miraculously healed by the sun's grace, Samba built this temple in gratitude. He hoped that Surya's healing light would forever fall upon these stones and bless all who stood here at dawn. To this day, as the first sunlight spills through Konark's sacred chambers, one can imagine the fulfillment of that ancient promise. Hundreds of miles inland, in another age and kingdom, a similar marvel of light unfolds at dawn. At the Sun Temple of Modhera in western India, the first rays of the rising sun are guided through a precisely oriented archway. Twice each year, on the equinox days, the sunlight travels deep into the temple's pillared hall and gently illuminates the statue of Surya in the inner sanctum. In that brief alignment, the god and his symbol, the actual sun, are united in a perfect moment of connection. The architects of Madeira positioned the temple exactly along the Tropic of Cancer, mapping it to the sun's seasonal journey with astonishing accuracy nearly 1,000 years ago. Outside the temple, the Surya Kund spreads out, a grand rectangular stepped tank that lies before the shrine like a mirror. Around the edges of this sunken pool are 108 small shrine sculptures. At dawn, devotees would descend the stone steps to the water's edge to bathe in the sacred waters before entering the temple. As the sun climbed, its rays would reflect in the rippling water, dancing among the steps and shrines. The number of these mini-temples, 108, is considered auspicious, echoing the cosmic order. There are 108 beads in a prayer rosary, and ancient sages recognized 108 as a number connecting the earth to the sun and moon. In this way, the very layout of Madera's temple and tank symbolized wholeness, binding ritual purification to the wider cosmos. It is not only at sunrise that temples and the sun commune. Far to the south, as evening approaches on the day of the equinox, worshippers gather at the Padmanabhaswamy temple in Kerala to watch the sunset work its magic. The great western gate tower of this temple is pierced by a vertical stack of ornamental windows. As the sun sinks toward the horizon over the Arabian Sea, its orange disk aligns perfectly with the uppermost window, shining through it like a fiery eye in the tower. Every few minutes, as the sun descends, it appears in the next window below, then the next, stepping down the tower in a radiant sequence. In the final moments before nightfall, the glowing sun rests exactly in the lowest window before vanishing. The crowd gasps softly, and many press their palms together in reverence. This cascading alignment happens only on 2 days each year. It is a planned spectacle of light and architecture that has astonished observers for generations, a reminder that even in the temple's design, the cycles of the sun are enshrined. Long before grand temples of stone rose to honor the sun, the people of ancient India found the cosmos in simpler sanctuaries of fire and clay. Imagine a Vedic priest thousands of years ago, crouching on a riverbank under a sky full of stars. In the pre-dawn darkness, he arranges bricks in precise patterns to build a sacred fire altar. Night still lingers around him, but he knows each bright star overhead by name. He watches the position of Venus low in the east and tracks the seasonal shift of constellations to time his ritual. Every placement of a brick is guided by tradition, by ritual formula, and by cosmic number. As the first hint of sunrise colors the sky, the priest lights the piled wood. Flames leap upward, and in that moment, the little fire on earth becomes a reflection of the universe itself. The altar, built in the shape of a cosmic bird, is a miniature cosmos, aligned and tuned to the celestial order known to his forefathers. Ancient scriptures describe how these fire altars were themselves astronomical calculators. They were constructed in specific sacred shapes, sometimes as a falcon with outstretched wings to fly toward the sun, other times as a tortoise representing the earth. Each form was laden with meaning. Around the altar's perimeter, the priest would lay 360 stones, one for each day of the solar year. These stones were often divided among different layers of the altar, symbolizing the three worlds: the earth, the atmosphere, and the sky beyond. In one traditional design, 21 stones might form the innermost ring for the earth, 78 stones for the atmosphere, and 261 for the sky, adding up to the full 360 days. By encoding the year into the altar itself, the site of the sacrifice became a calendar in brick and flame. With each dawn offering made at a precisely calculated time, perhaps the winter solstice or spring equinox, the priest affirmed a profound idea: as in the heavens, so on earth. The ritual would only be effective if timed with the cosmic clock, tying human action to celestial motion. Over time, these humble brick altars evolved into towering temples of stone. Yet the underlying philosophy remained unchanged. A temple must reflect the cosmos. According to the canons of Sthapatya Veda, the ancient Indian science of architecture, the ground plan of a temple is a mandala, a geometric diagram of the universe, aligned perfectly with the cardinal directions. The temple's central spire, or shikara, represents Mount Meru, the mythical golden mountain at the center of all creation. The deity's sanctum lies at the heart of the mandala, like the soul of the cosmic man. Often, carved into the ceilings or thresholds, are the symbols of the grahas and rashis, the planets and zodiac signs, so that all the heavens are invited inside the sacred space. Many temples include a cluster of 9 small shrines at one corner of the complex, dedicated to the Navagraha, the 9 celestial influences, the sun, the moon, 5 visible planets, and 2 lunar nodes. Worshippers circumambulate these shrines before entering the main temple, acknowledging that their lives are intertwined with the cosmic dance of those celestial bodies. In one remarkable temple in Sringeri, this integration of astronomy and architecture reaches a poetic zenith. The hall of the Vidyashankara temple, built in the 14th century, is encircled by 12 elaborate pillars, each bearing carvings of a zodiac sign. As the year progresses, the rising sun casts its beam into this hall at dawn, illuminating each pillar in turn, month by month. On the day of the summer solstice, the first rays of sun shine directly on the pillar engraved with Cancer. And at winter solstice, the dawn sun perfectly lights the pillar of Capricorn on the opposite side. The alignment is so precise that it reveals the architect's deep understanding of the solar trajectory. Standing in that temple at sunrise, one witnesses a planned interplay of light and stone. A ray of sunlight falls upon a specific zodiacal pillar, as if the cosmos is selecting a calendar page. It is an ancient calendar in living light, resetting with every season. In a very real sense, many Indian temples served not only as places of worship, but also as giant sundials and observatories for their communities. The daily passage of the sun, the monthly phases of the moon, and the yearly shift of seasons were often observed and marked in relation to temple structures. Priests and scholar astronomers would use a temple's aligned corridors, or gnomons, shadow-casting pillars, to note the exact days of solstice or equinox. From the timing of monsoon rains to the scheduling of harvest festivals, the temple's architecture provided a cosmic framework. When the sun or a star aligned with a temple doorway, it signaled that an auspicious time had arrived. In this way, the agricultural calendar and the ritual calendar were tied together by stone and sunlight. The architecture ensured that each year, the return of the rains, the harvest season, and the New Year's dawn could be anticipated simply by watching the interplay of light and shadow on the temple grounds. Thus, both the spiritual life and the practical life of the people stayed attuned to the movements of the heavens. From the massive sun temples that mark the solstices to the humblest village shrine that faces the sunrise, the message written in stone across India is the same. The cosmos is woven into the fabric of devotion. As twilight falls and the first stars shimmer into view above a temple courtyard, generation upon generation have looked up in wonder. They set their lives by this celestial rhythm, planting crops when the sun reached a certain point on the horizon, scheduling holy days when a particular star rose at dusk, and their sanctuaries echoed those rhythms in their design. In India, every temple is in a sense an observatory, and every prayer an attempt to synchronize the human heart with the turning of the universe. The dialogue between sky and sanctum has continued unbroken here for millennia, etched in sandstone and granite, proclaiming that the divine and the cosmic are one, Yet this language of the stars, the alignment of earthly monuments with the heavens, and this devotion to cosmic harmony were not confined to India. Our journey continues across towering mountains and broad plains, far to the northeast, where another ancient civilization watched the skies with equal reverence. Under the expansive firmament of China, emperors and sages carefully studied the movements of celestial bodies and wove that knowledge into their city layouts and monumental buildings. Here, a grand stage was set for rituals that would bind earth and heaven, a ceremony performed by the Son of Heaven himself amid an architectural masterpiece dedicated to upholding celestial order. For millennia, Chinese rulers sought to harmonize their rule with the will of heaven. In earlier ages, emperors traveled great distances to make offerings on sacred mountaintops. They climbed the steep steps of Taishan in pre-dawn darkness, reaching the summit just as the sun rose, to prostrate themselves and burn sacrifices on that holy peak. From those heights, they believed, their prayers could reach the highest sky. By the time of the Ming dynasty, this ancient practice was symbolically recreated within the empire's capital. In Beijing, the emperors built the Temple of Heaven, an artificial sacred mountain in spirit, so that they could perform the most important heavenly rites at the very heart of their domain. It is the pre-dawn darkness of midwinter in the imperial capital. The air is cold and utterly still. Above the sleeping city, stars glitter in a moonless sky, the familiar pattern of the Big Dipper wheels overhead, and the North Star, the pivot of the heavens, glows steadily, due north of the Forbidden Palace. By the light of flickering lanterns, a solemn procession of robed figures moves silently through deserted streets, making its way toward a large walled park at the city's southern edge. At the center of the procession, carried in a curtained sedan chair, is the Emperor of China, revered as the Son of Heaven. He has spent the previous day and night in purification, fasting and praying in a nearby hall of abstinence to prepare his mind and spirit for this great duty. Now, as he approaches the sacred precinct, he signals to stop the chair. Tradition dictates that at a certain point, even the Son of Heaven must proceed on foot as a sign of humility. He steps out into the cold air. His breath forms pale clouds in the starlight. Flanked by a few select princes and ritual officers, the Emperor passes through the gate and into the dark expanse of the Temple of Heaven. Ahead, through the darkness, looms a circular marble platform open to the sky, the round altar of heaven. It stands alone in a wide plaza, 3 broad tiers of white stone rising subtly toward the stars. Not a single common subject is allowed within these grounds on this night. This solemn rite is between the Emperor and the cosmos alone. Even the entourage hangs back at a respectful distance, remaining at the edges of the plaza with bowed heads. The Emperor ascends the first set of stairs, then the second, and finally the third, arriving at the uppermost tier of the circular altar. This is the heart of the temple complex, a round dais of smooth marble under the open sky. In the exact center of that platform lies a polished round slab known as the Heart of Heaven. He steps onto that central stone and suddenly stands utterly alone under the great vault of the sky. Here, at the year's darkest point, he will implore heaven for renewal. It is the dawn of the winter solstice, the moment when the sun begins its return journey. The imperial astronomers have calculated this day and hour with care, so that the rite coincides with the turning of yin to yang, the rebirth of the sun's light. Arranged before the Emperor, on a low altar table, are the offerings prepared for heaven. There are shining discs of jade and lengths of fine silk in hues of pale blue and green, the colours symbolizing the celestial realm. Vessels filled with millet grain and rice wine stand alongside, representing the harvests of the empire. At a slight distance on the altar, a perfectly white bull, raised and fed to perfection for this purpose, stands tethered calmly, an ultimate sacrifice without blemish. These are the most precious gifts the empire can give, wealth from the earth transformed into offerings worthy of the sky. The emperor lights a stick of incense, and the delicate fragrance of sandalwood begins to drift upward in curling wisps. He takes in its scent and bows deeply toward the east, toward the unseen heaven above. In the intense quiet, one can hear the soft rustle of his dragon-embroidered silk robes as he kneels. The first words of the ancient invocation leave his lips in a measured chant. His voice is low and clear, reciting prayers that have been passed down for centuries for this very moment. He calls upon Shangdi, the Lord of Heaven, to look kindly upon his land. He offers thanks for the bounty of the past year and begs forgiveness for any mistakes made under his rule. He promises to govern justly and benevolently according to the mandate of heaven. His words echo slightly in the frosty air. From somewhere near the perimeter of the altar, a solitary bell chimes, and then a chorus of music begins almost imperceptibly. A gentle, ethereal melody played on ancient bronze bells and stone chimes. The mournful, haunting notes of a flute join in, the music floating through the darkness as part of the ceremony. At that very moment, far along the eastern horizon, the first glimmer of dawn appears. A faint silver light eases into the sky, removing one veil of darkness from the marble platform. As the minutes pass, the glimmer grows into a pale golden band of light. The emperor, still standing at the center, raises his arms slowly toward the sky in a gesture of offering and welcome. The timing is impeccable. Just as he completes the final phrases of his prayer, the rim of the sun breaks above the horizon. The white marble of the altar catches the early light and is bathed in a cold, bluish glow that quickly warms to gold. The emperor lifts his face to the light. In that instant, he becomes the axis between earth and heaven, the living conduit through whom the hopes of an entire empire are communicated to the cosmos. For a brief time, he stands motionless, absorbing the energy of the new sun and the silent response of heaven. Around him, the vast capital is still quiet in dawn's early light, unaware of the delicate spiritual drama unfolding at its fringe. But here, in this circle of stone under the endless sky, balance is being restored. The celestial order above is acknowledged and mirrored by harmony below. As daylight grows stronger, the emperor descends the altar, the primary ritual now complete with the arrival of the sun. He and his retinue move toward the magnificent hall of prayer for good harvests nearby, a grand circular sanctuary with 3 tiers of curving azure roof tiles that gleam in the morning light. This ornate hall stands atop a tall, triple-level terrace, dominating the surrounding grounds. Like the open-air altar, it is rich in symbolism and meaning. The Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests is perhaps the most breathtaking structure in the complex. Its round shape, atop a broad square platform, reflects the ancient Chinese belief that heaven is round and earth is square. Inside the hall, 28 massive pillars of fragrant wood hold up the soaring dome without a single nail, an engineering marvel that has stood for centuries. 4 great pillars in the center of the hall represent the 4 seasons. Encircling them is a ring of 12 pillars, symbolizing the 12 months of the year. Another outer ring of 12 pillars represents the traditional 12 divisions of the day, and also the 12 signs of the Chinese zodiac. In total, 28 columns support the dome, a number that subtly echoes the 28 lunar lodges, constellations, that ancient Chinese astronomers used to map the night sky. Looking up from the center of the hall, you gaze into a ceiling painted a deep celestial blue and adorned with gilded stars and coiling dragons, as if standing at the very center of the cosmos. Everything in the Temple of Heaven's design reinforces the idea of harmony between earth and heaven. The entire complex is laid out along a precise north-south axis, aligned with the imperial palace in the Forbidden City to the north. The emperor could travel in a straight line from his throne, out of his palace gates, and eventually arrive at this altar, moving symbolically from the human realm into the realm of spirit. The surrounding walls of the temple compound embody cosmic principles. The northern end of the enclosure is curved in a half circle, representing the roundness of heaven, while the southern end is straight and square, representing the rectilinear earth. The architects also imbued the temple with numerical symbolism. The number 9, traditionally associated with the emperor and with heaven's supreme yang power, appears repeatedly. The circular mound. Altar, where the emperor prayed, is built in 3 tiers, and each tier is accessed by flights of 9 steps. At the top platform, the flagstones are arranged in 9 concentric rings around the central heaven stone. The outermost ring contains 81 stones, which is 9 times 9. Even the railings and balusters of the altar come in multiples of 9. These numbers were no mere decoration. They were believed to resonate with the cosmos itself. If you stand at the exact center of the upper altar and speak, an unusual phenomenon occurs. The world seems hushed, and your voice returns to your ears in a soft, enveloping echo. It is as if the design of the altar confirms that this precise spot is the nexus of communication between earth and heaven, a place where a voice, even a whisper, might carry beyond the clouds. In the Chinese worldview, the emperor was far more than a secular ruler. He was the bridge between the human realm and the divine cosmos. His authority was said to come directly from the mandate of heaven, a heavenly blessing contingent on his virtue and on his fulfillment of cosmic duties. Performing the rites at the Temple of Heaven was one of his most sacred obligations. Through these rituals, he demonstrated humility before heaven and reaffirmed his commitment to maintain the natural and moral order. If the emperor performed the rites correctly and ruled with justice, it was believed that the seasons would unfold favorably, the rains would come on time, and the empire would prosper. But if he failed in his duties, or if cosmic signs like comets, earthquakes, or eclipses appeared unexpectedly, these were read as warnings that the mandate of heaven might be withdrawn. Thus, maintaining celestial harmony was not only a spiritual task, but a political one, upon which the very legitimacy of the dynasty rested. Every offering of jade and silk, every libation of wine and grain on that marble altar was, in effect, a renewal of a cosmic contract between the emperor and the universe. The design of the imperial capital itself reflected this cosmic ethos. Beijing was conceived as a microcosm of the universe. In addition to the Temple of Heaven in the south, the Ming emperors established a Temple of Earth in the north, a Temple of the Sun in the east, and a Temple of the Moon in the west. Each was deliberately placed at one of the 4 cardinal directions around the Forbidden City. In this way, the entire city formed an earthly diagram of the cosmos, with the emperor's throne at the center, like the pole star, and the 4 seasonal and elemental temples around him. Every time the emperor moved out to one of these altars to perform a seasonal rite, praying for rain at the earth altar or marking the summer solstice at the sun altar, it reinforced the notion that the empire was in tune with the universal order. Spring and autumn, day and night, earth and sky, all balanced through ritual and design. Though the emperors have long since vanished, and these grand ceremonies ceased over a century ago, the Temple of Heaven still stands in serene majesty. In the crisp quiet of early morning, as a pale sun climbs above ancient cypress and cedar trees, one can wander the pathways of this hallowed park and sense the lingering aura of cosmic purpose. The circular altar lies empty now, open to any visitor to stand upon its frost-white stones. The Hall of Prayer's ornate interior no longer echoes with imperial prayers, but the memory of those rituals seems to live on in the stillness. The empty altars and silent halls continue their vigil under the open sky. No incense burns, and no music plays at dawn today. Yet, at each winter solstice, the sun still finds its way to shine on the same flagstones where emperors once knelt. The celestial order that this place enshrines remains timeless. Here, architecture and nature still converse in the old language. Alignment, balance, and harmony between heaven and earth. If you stand at the center of the circular altar on a calm day and whisper, you will hear your voice echo back from the perfectly curved walls, as if the cosmos itself is answering. In that gentle echo is a reminder of the grand idea that built this place, that through reverence and knowledge, human beings can find a resonance with the eternal sky. Beyond China, our path now leads southward into the tropics, into a world of lush jungles and mist-laden dawns. There lies an ancient city, long swallowed by trees and time, where a colossal temple complex rises like a stone mountain from the flat forest. This is Angkor Wat, in present-day Cambodia, a temple conceived as an earthly mirror of the cosmos, a celestial mountain carved by human hands out of rock and devotion. At the break of day, when the equinox sun climbs the sky above Angkor, something extraordinary occurs. The sun appears to balance itself exactly atop the tallest lotus-shaped tower of the temple, perfectly crowning the stone summit with fire. In that instant, the boundary between earth and sky blurs. The temple's central spire becomes Mount Meru, holding up the sun. The very layout of Angkor Wat is a map of the heavens and a calendar in stone, aligning with solstices and cosmic cycles, as recent research has revealed. With the fading echoes of China's celestial rites still in our ears, we venture now into the misty Cambodian dawn to uncover the mysteries written in the sacred stones of this temple of the stars. Night slowly envelops an ancient canyon, and silence falls among the stones. Moments ago, a golden blade of sunlight pierced through a spiral carved in rock, marking the solstice, just as it has for 1,000 years. Now that radiant beam has vanished, and dusk gently drapes itself over the land. The western horizon glows orange, then fades to deep purple. One by one, the first stars appear, timid sparks in the dimming sky. As darkness deepens, countless points of light awaken overhead. In this hushed twilight, something stirs in our memory. Not all cosmic wisdom is etched in stone and shadow. Much of it lives in the stories whispered beneath the same sky, passed from elders to children in the glow of a humble fire. Under the vault of stars that guided ancient architects and priests. Ordinary families found meaning through myth and lore. For them, the heavens became a canvas for stories. Gentle teachings painted in starlight across the night. Across the world, under every night sky, our ancestors looked upward in wonder. They saw heroes and animals shining above. They remembered loved ones in the stars, and they charted their lives by those distant lights. Each flicker in the dark held a tale. In these myths and legends, the cosmos was alive with meaning, a realm where spirits danced among the constellations, where the Milky Way could be a river of souls, or the glowing trail of an ancient campfire swept across the sky. Such stories were more than mere entertainment around the fire. They carried knowledge of the seasons and offered moral lessons, bringing comfort on long, dark nights. Gathered beneath the infinite sky, with crickets chirping in the grass and flames casting flickering shadows. People shared these stories in soft, reverent voices. In doing so, they wove human life into the very fabric of the universe, binding earth and sky with threads of imagination and wisdom. Now, imagine a clear night in the high desert of the American Southwest. The air is cool and still. The silhouettes of mesas and sagebrush stretch into darkness. Above, the Milky Way arches from horizon to horizon, a luminous river of stars flowing across the vault of night. Around a small crackling fire, a circle of listeners sits bundled in woven blankets. An elder clears his throat and raises his hand toward that shimmering band, beginning a tale. His voice is low and melodic, carrying the weight of generations. In the beginning, he says softly, the sky was an empty, black void. The people's great benefactor, Black God, moved through this emptiness, carefully placing stars one by one into the heavens. Each star he set found its proper home, forming patterns that would guide and teach the people. But nearby lurked Coyote, the trickster. Coyote watched with growing impatience as Black God placed star after star ever so slowly. At last, in a burst of mischief, Coyote snatched up the blanket on which Black God had arranged the remaining stars and flung it into the air. Brilliant points of light scattered in a great spray across the darkness. Only a few constellations stayed where Black God had set them. The rest were thrown about at random. One bright ember, a fiery red star that Coyote grabbed in his paw, was flung so hard that it never settled in one place. Instead, it wandered the sky on its own path. And so, because of Coyote's prank, the world was left with a sky that is part orderly design and part wild accident, a handful of careful patterns shining amid a sea of scattered stars. As the elder speaks, the little group tilts their faces upward. They pick out the familiar patterns that Black God placed. Here a straight line of stars, there a tight cluster, and all around they see countless others strewn like glittering dust. The story gives meaning to what their eyes behold, a night sky of sacred order disrupted by chaos. Woven into the tale is a gentle lesson. It reminds the listeners that patience and careful work can be undone by impulsiveness. Up above, the evidence twinkles before them, and a few of the youngsters grin at the clever Coyote's mischief. The Milky Way itself, the elder says, is the shimmering trail left behind by Coyote's throw, still visible as a pale band against the dark. And that wandering red star, which we now know as a planet, roams the sky as a reminder of the trickster's folly. Beneath the broad desert heavens, the people feel the presence of cosmic order and cosmic playfulness all at once, blended together in the glittering tapestry above. When the tale is done, quiet laughter and murmured comments ripple through the listeners. The fire pops softly, sending sparks dancing upward, and in the distance, a coyote's yip rises into the night. It echoes off the canyon walls, as if the darkness itself is responding to the story with a mischievous chuckle of its own. Under these stars, a lesson has been passed on as gently as the night breeze. The children will remember Coyote's deed each time they see the misty Milky Way, and with that memory, they will be reminded to be patient and thoughtful. The sky has become their teacher. Far to the north, on the broad Great Plains, under that same spangled sky, a different story unfolds. Here the land is open, and the horizon seems endless. The night wind rustles through the tall grass, and a distant chorus of wolves adds a low harmony to the silence. A group of families is gathered in a grassy clearing, wrapped in warm robes under the stars. They all gaze upward at a tiny cluster of 7 faint stars trembling in the darkness. These stars, they say, are 7 sisters. Once, long ago, those sisters were young girls playing joyfully in the woods. Without warning, a gigantic bear, a hulking, dark shape with eyes like embers, began to chase them. The girls ran as fast as they could, hearts pounding, the bear's hot breath nearly at their heels. In desperation, the sisters clambered atop a low, rocky outcrop and huddled together. They cried out to the Great Spirit for help before the bear could reach them. The Great Spirit heard their fervent prayers. Suddenly, the small rock under the girls began to grow. It rose higher and higher, lifting the children beyond the reach of the bear. The bear reared onto its hind legs, snarling and clawing furiously at the rising stone. He gouged deep gashes into the rock's sides, trying to climb, but it was no use. The peak was now far too high. The girls clung to each other as the rock thrust them into the sky itself. When they reached the heavens, they were gently transformed into 7 bright stars. To this day they shine together as that little misty cluster in the night, forever out of the bear's grasp. On earth, the rock that saved them still stands. It is a towering butte jutting out of the plains, its flanks etched with long vertical grooves, said to be the very claw marks of the angry bear. By the light of the moon, one can trace those marks and imagine the tremendous creature that made them. Each generation of the people has looked upon that scarred rock and remembered the miracle that placed the sisters safely in the sky. And high above, on crisp, clear nights, parents still point out the 7 sisters and recount how that constellation came to be. It is a tale of terror and salvation, of innocence protected by divine intervention. The children listening feel both frightened and relieved as they picture the girls escaping and the thwarted bear below. But what of the great bear who gave chase? Some elders say he too was destined to live on in the sky. They point to another formation of stars looming large in the northern heavens, what many outside their culture call the Big Dipper, part of the Great Bear. To the people of the plains, that bright pattern of stars is indeed a colossal bear forever running across the night. Trailing behind him are 3 bright stars, seen as the faithful hunters who eternally pursue the beast. As the seasons turn and autumn arrives, the Great Bear appears to stumble low toward the horizon. This, they say, is when the hunters finally catch up and wound him. His blood drips down from the sky, and wherever it falls, the leaves of the trees below turn yellow and red. The forests of the world blaze with his blood each fall. The bear, wounded and weary, sinks out of sight and rests through the winter. But come spring, the Great Bear rises again, healed and renewed, climbing back into the sky to resume the chase. And so the cycle continues every year. Beneath these stars, families share the tale and see the turning of the year in its drama, the green of spring, the long days of summer, the red leaves of autumn, the stillness of winter, all bound to the eternal dance of hunter and bear above. Children come to understand why the world changes with the seasons, told in the form of a thrilling adventure written in the stars. As the campfires burn low and the night grows late, the community feels at peace. The stars above continue their slow wheel as the embers die, and the people know their world is in balance, their place in it reaffirmed by the stories shining in the sky. Our journey now carries us far over the ocean, beneath an entirely new pattern of stars in the southern hemisphere. Imagine yourself aboard a double-hulled canoe gliding across a tranquil Pacific night. The sea is a black mirror of the sky, and the horizon merges with darkness. Above, the sky is crowded with bright, unfamiliar stars. Each dip of our paddles causes tiny sparks of blue-green light in the water, plankton that glow, mirroring the starlight, as if the ocean itself is a second sky full of stars. The Southern Cross hangs low, pointing the way south, and a great cloudy smudge, the distant Magellanic Clouds, glows softly, unknown to northern peoples. Centuries ago, Polynesian wayfinders sailed these waters without maps or compasses. For them, the night sky was a faithful guide and an old friend. They knew each star by name and by the story it carried. Every star rising and setting on the horizon was a road sign on the open ocean. Even now, as we lie on the wooden deck of the canoe and look up, we can almost sense those star navigators of old among us, whispering the secrets of the skies. There is a legend among these islands, shared in hushed voices as waves lap gently against the canoe's hull, about the proudest star in the sky. It is said that once there was a single brilliant star, the brightest of all. This star grew vain, boasting of its radiance and beauty to the others. The great god Tane, guardian of the heavens, heard the star's prideful words and decided to teach it humility. With a mighty strike, Tane shattered the great star. It burst into numerous pieces that scattered across the sky. Those fragments became the star cluster we call the Pleiades. No longer a solitary, boastful beacon, the star had been transformed into many smaller lights that must shine together. To this day, that tight cluster of tiny stars glitters modestly in the night, a reminder of a time when even a star had to learn a lesson about pride. On another island, as the year turns toward winter, people wake before dawn and look to the eastern horizon for those same 7 stars. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, the Maori know this cluster as Matariki, meaning the eyes of the god. One ancient story tells that at the dawn of time, when the primordial parents, Sky Father and Earth Mother, were torn apart to form the world, the god of winds, Tauhirimatea, was so anguished that he tore out his own eyes and hurled them into the sky. His eyes shone there as the stars of Matariki. Each winter, when this cluster reappears in the pre-dawn dark, the Maori people mark the beginning of their new year. They call it the Matariki season, a time for remembrance, feasting, and renewal. Before sunrise, families gather outside, braving the chill, to watch those faint lights wink into view. They honour the relatives who have passed on, believing their souls now mingle among those stars. They celebrate the gift of another year of life and the promise of the growing season to come. Under those sparkling eyes of the god, they feel the past, present, and future converge for a moment. A new cycle begins as the Pleiades rise, and with it comes hope and reflection. The practical and the spiritual merge seamlessly. A myth of grieving gods is woven into the fabric of seasonal change and community life. Looking up from our canoe, we notice how these same stars and others once guided navigators across the open sea. For the Polynesians, knowledge of the stars was not just lore, but life-saving skill. They memorized the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, weaving them into songs and chants so they would never forget. Each night, far from any land, a navigator could find his position by the stars. He knew that when a particular bright star, say Sirius, rose at a certain spot on the horizon, it aligned with the direction of an island far beyond sight. He recognized Arcturus, which the Hawaiian people call Hokulea, the star of joy, and knew that when it climbed directly overhead, he had reached the latitude of Hawaii. Polynesian wayfinders spoke of star paths across the ocean, invisible roads connecting island to island, traced by following one star after another through the night. In their lore, these techniques were gifts from the gods or the spirits of revered ancestors who watched from the heavens. To sail was to put absolute trust in nature's signposts. Imagine those ancient navigators at midnight, standing at the canoe's stern, one hand on the steering paddle, the other pointing up to a star, softly singing the name of that star and the direction it brings. They felt no fear, for the sky was like a familiar map drawn by wise ancestors. Modern sailors have even rediscovered this art, navigating great voyages without instruments, by relying solely on the star compass in their mind. When they do, they often describe a profound sense of connection, as if all those navigators of old are voyaging with them in spirit. The boundary between past and present, between myth and method, fades away on the open sea under the eternal stars. In this way, for the people of the Pacific, navigation was not merely a technique, but a sacred trust, binding each journey to the mythic deeds of the gods and the guiding souls of their forebears. The stars ensured they were never truly alone on the ocean. We drift westward under southern skies and come to the vast Australian outback. On a cool winter night in the red desert heart of Australia, the sky is a jewel box of stars, untouched by artificial light. The Milky Way above is so bright it casts faint shadows on the ground. Here, far from any town, Aboriginal elders gather their families around a low campfire. The flames paint warm hues on ancient faces as they turn upward to the blaze of the Milky Way. These elders carry in their minds some of the oldest star lore on Earth. They teach that the sky and the land are inseparable, each reflecting the other. Unlike Western stargazers who connect the dots of stars to form familiar shapes, Aboriginal star lore often finds shapes in the dark spaces between the stars. In that great river of the Milky Way, they see vast dark patches where clouds of cosmic dust blot out the starry light. To them, those shadowy forms are alive with meaning. One of them is a giant emu. High above, stretched across the starfields, the darkness itself forms the long neck, body, and legs of a great celestial bird. Its head is the coal-black nebula beside the Southern Cross, and its body follows the contours of the Milky Way through Scorpius and beyond. This is the emu in the sky, a constellation recognized by many Aboriginal groups across Australia. It is not drawn by connecting stars, but by the outline of emptiness against the glittering backdrop. On a certain rock engraving site in New South Wales, The shape of an emu is carved into the sandstone. At specific times of year, when the emu in the sky appears in exactly the same pose overhead, the carving on the ground aligns with its celestial counterpart. It is as though a creator long ago stamped the emu's image both on the earth and in the heavens, to remind everyone that what is above is also below. But this cosmic emu is not merely a figure of imagination, it is also a seasonal guide. As the months pass, the emu in the sky shifts its position and orientation. The elders watch these changes closely, for they signal events on the land. When the emu's body stands high overhead after sunset, it is time. Out in the bush, real emus are beginning their nesting season. They are laying large green eggs in shallow ground nests. This is the moment for the community to quietly venture out and gather those precious emu eggs for sustenance. It's a delicate task, done with respect. They take only what the people need, ensuring emus will continue to thrive. Later in the season, when the emu in the sky tilts and seems to be running along the horizon, the nesting time has passed. The eggs have hatched, and the window for harvesting is over. In this way, the sky serves as a calendar, and the dark shape of the emu is like the hand of a cosmic clock. By reading it, the people know when to find food and when to refrain, keeping balance with the natural world. The elders often smile as they explain this to the young ones, how a bird in the sky tells them about birds on the ground. To them, nothing is isolated. The earth and sky speak to each other. On another clear night, attention turns to a different cluster of stars. The same seven sisters that appear in so many cultures' lore. Aboriginal Australians have their own rich versions of the Seven Sisters story, passed down through what they call the dream time, the time of creation. In one widespread tale, the seven stars are a group of young women, sometimes said to be the Napaljari sisters, who are being pursued endlessly by a man. The man is often associated with the constellation Orion. Sometimes he is said to be a lustful hunter named Niru, other times a mischievous spirit, but always he longs to catch one of those sisters for his wife. The sisters flee from him across land and sky. They leap into the heavens to escape, clustering together for safety. Niru follows, and he becomes the stars of Orion, forever chasing the seven sisters across the night. He never succeeds in catching them, and they remain just out of reach. Many versions of the story explain why one of the seven stars is often hard to see. In some tellings, one sister dies, or hides, or stays slightly apart to protect a younger sibling. So only 6 shine clearly, while the 7th is faint. Aboriginal communities use this story to teach lessons about unwanted pursuit and the protective bond of sisterhood. The Seven Sisters saga is deeply ingrained in art, dance, and song. In the red dunes and rock hills, you can find ancient cave paintings of the sisters and their pursuer. During ceremonial dances at night, the tale is enacted with firelight flickering on painted bodies, symbolizing the stars themselves moving in the sky. For tens of thousands of years, these stories have been told, uniting the people under a shared understanding of the world. It is often said that Aboriginal Australians may be the world's first astronomers. Their observations of the heavens date back countless generations, yet they never separated science from story. Observing the sky was, for them, part of living on the land and part of spiritual practice. Even now, Aboriginal communities strive to preserve this knowledge. As a new generation looks up at the sky, they learn the old names of stars and the songs that go with them. They hear how the morning star tells when daylight is coming, how the phases of the moon tell when to collect certain shellfish, and always how the Milky Way, is like a great river, connecting the camps of sky ancestors. To listen to an elder under the outback sky is to be transported into the dream time, where every star has a story, and every story has a star. When the fires burn low, and the voices fall silent, the people curl up to sleep beneath the stellar canopy. They feel the presence of their ancestors in every twinkling light. Every star above is like a campfire of an ancestor in the sky, reminding them that the dream time is ongoing, and that they are never alone under that vast universe. They rest in the certainty that as long as the stars move in their ancient patterns, life on Earth will follow its rightful course. Now we travel under a different sky, to the savannas of Africa, where the night is alive with its own cosmic stories. The air is warm and filled with the sounds of insects. In the distance, beyond the ring of firelight, a lion's rumbling roar vibrates through the darkness. A slender crescent moon hangs low, and the Milky Way pours across the sky, casting a ghostly glow. The outline of a lone acacia tree stands in silhouette against the horizon, its flat-topped crown subtly illuminated by starlight. Under this canopy of brilliant stars, an elder with wise, weathered eyes tends the campfire and prepares to speak. Children gather close, knowing a story is coming that will carry them to the very beginning of things. The Milky Way arcs overhead like a shimmering white pathway. Pointing his staff at that glowing band, the elder asks, "Do you know how the Milky Way came to be?" The little ones shake their heads, eyes wide. With a gentle smile, he tells them of a girl from the ancient times. Long ago, when the world was still young, this girl waited by the campfire for her family to return from a hunt. Night settled in around her, and with it came worries. Her mother, father, and brothers were still out in the wilderness, and without light, they could be lost. Determined to help them, the girl gathered glowing embers from the fire in a clay pot. She climbed a small hill and flung the embers and ashes into the sky. Up they flew, scattering wide across the blackness. The red coals became twinkling red stars. The grey ashes became the faint silvery glow of the Milky Way. Her act of love placed a great river of light in the heavens, a path her family could follow to find their way home. To this day, people call that hazy band of light the Star's Road, or the Ashen Path, and some say if you look closely, you can see the footprints of those travellers eternally walking its length. The children peer upward, imagining the caring young girl and her family now immortalized in the sky. They see that broad misty road overhead and feel safe, as if a guiding hand is always there when night falls. Elsewhere around the flickering fire, an uncle chimes in with another piece of sky wisdom. He reminds everyone that when a certain tiny cluster of stars appears in the east before dawn, it's time to plant the crops. Across Africa, many peoples know the Pleiades by names that translate to digging stars or planting stars. Their annual reappearance in the early morning sky is a signal from nature that the rainy season is coming and the soil will soon be ready. Just like farmers in other parts of the world, from the Andes to Asia, African farmers look to this little group of stars as a seasonal clock. It's remarkable, he notes, how the same cluster that one culture sees as fleeing sisters, another culture sees as seeds, and here as the spark to begin tilling the earth. Under the very same sky, people continents apart found guidance in that glittering sign. The night is rich with such tales. A grandmother speaks up now, her voice low and rhythmic, sharing one of her favourite constellations, a cautionary tale written in the stars. She points out a striking arrangement high above. 3 stars in a row, with a reddish star glowering nearby. To many, this is part of Orion and Taurus, but to her people, it is a scene of drama. In their lore, those 3 stars are 3 zebras walking the celestial plain. The reddish star is a hungry lion lying in wait. Another bright star, not far away, is a hunter who once tried to shoot the lion and missed. His arrow is the little cluster of stars we know as Orion's sword, fallen short of its mark. Because he failed, the hunter dares not return home to his wives, who are the Pleiades. He remains in the sky, shivering with cold and forever hungry. Meanwhile, the lion keeps watch over the 3 zebras, his red eye, the star Betelgeuse, ever vigilant. The children's eyes widen as the grandmother's words transform the sky into a savanna at night. Fearless lions, wary prey, and a hunter doomed to remain among the stars, an eternal reminder of the cost of one's mistakes. It is a lesson about patience and responsibility hidden in the patterns above. Had the hunter been more skillful or careful, he might have fed his family and returned home. Now he serves as a beacon for others, warning them to act wisely. The children snuggle closer, absorbing the warning shining overhead. One of the older boys then asks about the countless other stars sprinkled across the heavens. The elder smiles and shares a comforting belief held by many African peoples. Those stars are the souls of our ancestors. Each tiny light might be someone who has died, now watching over the living from the sky. The children look up with new tenderness, imagining that perhaps great-grandmother or great-grandfather is up there, one of those little flickering lights, sending love down upon them. Others in the circle add their perspectives. Some say the stars are holes in the solid dome of the sky, peepholes through which a heavenly light trickles down. Another suggests they are campfires of the departed in the hereafter, lit to guide us in the darkness. The clearing grows quiet for a moment as everyone gazes upward, feeling the presence of loved ones in the glittering dome above. Grief and longing soften into reassurance. No one is ever truly gone, as long as the stars endure. Just then, a sudden streak of light flashes overhead, a shooting star burning its way across the heavens. Excited gasps are followed by laughter and pointing. To some, a shooting star might mean a soul is journeying, or a good omen is passing. One of the men jokes that perhaps the celestial cattle have broken loose, a playful nod to a Zulu belief that meteors are heavenly cattle stampeding across the sky. The group chuckles, and a feeling of warmth and kinship flows through the gathering. Under the immense African sky, they all feel deeply connected, not just to one another, but to the land and the universe beyond. They see that human life, nature, and the cosmos are all entwined. Every flicker above has a story, and every story gives the children, and even the adults, a sense that the universe cares for them, teaches them, and includes them. As the embers settle into glowing coals, the community drifts off to rest. In the quiet darkness, they take comfort in the thought that as long as the stars shine, the stories will continue, and so will the guidance and love from those who came before. The sky is full of friends, and the night is never truly lonely. On the other side of the world, in ancient India, a different star story is told, one of devotion and steadfastness. It is the legend of Dhruva, a young prince who sought the blessings of the divine. So unwavering was Dhruva's faith and meditation that the gods granted him immortality in the heavens. He was transformed into the pole star, a fixed point in the northern sky. To this day, That star is called Dhruva Tara, and it remains ever constant, never rising or setting. Travelers in the northern hemisphere still navigate by its steady light. For Hindus, Dhruva's story is a lesson that dedication and faith can anchor the world. Each night, when they see the pole star, they recall the boy who became a beacon for all, a symbol of hope and truth shining above a turbulent world. In a modern sky filled with city lights, the pole star might be hard to pick out. But to those who know Dhruva's tale, even a quick glimpse of it can be a reassuring reminder to stay true to one's path, just as that boy-turned star did so long ago. Even in the far Arctic north, where winter nights are long and the sky often shimmers with auroras, the first peoples of those lands looked up for guidance and meaning. The Inuit, beneath a dome of crisp stars, told stories to warn and teach. One legend speaks of a selfish hunter who broke his community's most sacred rules. As a consequence, the spirits lifted him into the sky and transformed him into a faint star. There he must remain, watching his people from above, unable to join them, a lonely light as a reminder of the cost of wrongdoing. In the pattern of Cassiopeia, a zigzag of bright Arctic stars, some Inuit see the trail of that exiled hunter's steps, wandering forever across the sky. Such tales, shared in igloos and camps through the long winter, impressed upon the young the importance of respect and humility. To this day, elders say the softly whistling wind on a clear, starlit winter night might be that lonely starman, murmuring regrets and urging others to live rightly. And when the dancing curtains of the northern lights wave overhead, some Inuit imagine spirits playing ball or dancing, as if to assure those below that even the coldest night sky is full of life and stories. From the red deserts of Australia to the lush savannas of Africa, from the islands of the Pacific to the great plains of the Americas, the stories told under the eternal sky share a common heartbeat. Each culture's tale is unique, coloured by its landscape and history, yet a thread of unity runs through them all. All these peoples, though oceans and centuries apart, looked up at the same stars and felt the same wonder. They all pondered similar mysteries. Who placed the lights in the sky? What messages are written in their movements? How are we connected to that vast glittering dome above? In their own poetic ways, they found answers that guided them. It's astonishing to realize that the 7 sisters we saw fleeing the bear on the plains are the same 7 stars guiding a Polynesian voyager, or signalling a farmer's planting season in Africa, or inspiring a Dreamtime dance in Australia. It is as though certain lights in the sky speak a universal language that all cultures can hear, each translating it into their own story. Under the gentle glow of starlight, our ancestors found reassurance that the cosmos had an order and a story, one that included them. Parents comforted children with tales that cast the stars as friendly and familiar. Loving sisters, patient guides, watchful ancestors. Wise elders guided their people with the knowledge encoded in those myths. When to sow seeds, when to harvest, when to set sail on journeys, when to hold ceremonies of renewal. In this way, across the world, human beings lived not apart from the sky, but in constant conversation with it. They passed on practical wisdom and spiritual insight hand in hand through the art of storytelling, ensuring that each new generation knew one profound truth. We all dwell under one sky and share its gifts. We have only sampled a few of the countless chapters of this human fascination. Ancient Egyptians aligned their pyramids with certain stars, Orion's belt and the North Star, believing their pharaohs' souls would ascend along those celestial routes. Chinese imperial astronomers mapped the heavens diligently, weaving celestial omens into the fortunes of their emperors. Greek and Roman stargazers named the constellations after heroes and monsters whose tales still populate our sky maps today. Every culture, in its own way, has engaged in this grand dialogue with the cosmos. From the temples of Angkor, tracking Venus, to the stone circles of Europe framing midsummer sunrise, the impulse was universal. From these myriad experiences, we come away with a profound realization. All of us, no matter who we are, or where or when we live, are bound together beneath the expanse of heaven. The same stars that watched over a Maya astronomer atop his pyramid, or twinkled above an aboriginal camp in the bush, or guided a nomadic hunter in the Arctic night, are the stars we see when we step outside tonight. The sun that rose and set on ancient stone circles is the very same sun warming our faces today. Separated by time and distance, humans have nevertheless always shared the celestial canvas overhead. On that canvas, we have all painted our dreams, fears, and aspirations, chapter by chapter, through the ages. Each culture's cosmic wisdom, whether built in stone or woven in story, forms a piece of a greater human tapestry. It is a story of connection, people to nature, earth to sky, past to future, and one community to another. In recognizing this shared cosmic legacy, we discover that our varied beliefs and customs are harmonious verses of a single song. Under one sky, humanity is one family, gazing up and wondering, generation after generation, together. Many saw that glowing ribbon of the Milky Way as a great celestial river. In China, it was the silver river of the heavens. In other lands, it was the path of souls, or the path of birds. Always something vital and flowing, connecting the realms of heaven and earth. Truly, the sky's story is a thread that ties us all together, wherever we are. Looking back on our journey through time and space, we see a tapestry of cosmic wisdom woven through all of human history. We walked among the temples of the Maya, where pyramids became giant calendars, tracking the dance of the sun, moon, and stars. We stood before the Aztecs' great temple, as the equinox sun made a serpent of light slither across its stairs. We climbed the high citadel of Machu Picchu, the Inca city of the sun, aligned perfectly with the cardinal points and the motions of the heavens. We ventured into Chaco Canyon, where a spiral rock carving receives a dagger of sunlight on the solstice, uniting earth and sky in a single beam of brilliance. And we listened to the voices of elders beneath open skies, telling how the universe came to be and how we should live in harmony with it. In each of these experiences, the theme was the same: a profound reverence for and connection to the cosmos. It is humbling to realize that long before modern science, people all over the world knew the rhythms of the heavens and wove them into their lives. They built their sacred structures to mirror the sky's order, aligning stones with solstices and equinoxes. They crafted myths to imprint cosmic patterns on human hearts. By doing so, they found a kind of harmony between themselves and the vast universe. Today, we have different tools and languages, telescopes, spacecraft, mathematics. Yet at heart, we remain those stargazers searching for our place among the stars. We still stand in awe beneath a total eclipse as the moon briefly swallows the sun, just as ancient peoples once did, with a mix of fear and wonder. We still catch our breath at the sight of a brilliant meteor streaking across the night, perhaps even whispering a wish upon it, carrying forward a timeless tradition of hope. We gather at old monuments like Stonehenge or Chichen Itza to watch the solstice sun rise or set exactly where our ancestors intended. And in those moments, we connect with them across time, feeling the same awe under the very same sun. In our modern daily lives, it is easy to become disconnected from the sky. Our cities glow with electric light and drown out the stars. Our days are often spent indoors, eyes fixed on screens. But when we venture out under a clear, dark night and tilt our heads upward, that ancient bond rekindles in an instant. The Milky Way spills across the sky, and we suddenly feel both tiny and immense. Tiny, because we glimpse how vast the cosmos truly is, and immense, because we are part of it. We become aware that we are links in an unbroken chain of sky watchers. From the first humans who looked up in wonder at the arch of the Milky Way, to us today, sending probes beyond our solar system, the same curiosity and yearning drive us. We ask the same fundamental questions they did. Where did we come from? What is our place in this immense expanse? Are we alone, or are we connected to everything we see? The cultures we've explored may not have had modern instruments, but they understood something profound. The universe was not a cold, distant emptiness. It was a home filled with signs and stories. They felt the sun's warmth as life-giving, the moon's cycle as a guide for planting and harvesting, the return of certain stars as a promise of rains or migrations. They recognized patterns in the sky and celebrated them, weaving the cosmic story into their own. In that recognition lies a kind of truth that still resonates. Modern science, in its own way, echoes some of those ancient insights. We've learned that the iron in our blood and the calcium in our bones were forged in the hearts of distant stars that exploded long before the Earth existed. In a very real sense, we are made of stardust, children of the stars. How remarkable that, for millennia, people have imagined they descended from star ancestors, or that their loved ones became stars in the sky, not knowing how right they truly were. Through the eyes of astronauts, we have seen Earth itself as a tiny blue gleam in the cosmic dark, a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam. This perspective only reinforces what our ancestors intuited, that all of us on this little world are inextricably connected, sharing one home under one cosmic sky. The more we learn about the universe, the more we marvel. We discover that the elements of our bodies were born in stellar furnaces, that the atoms of our being have travelled through supernovas and nebula to become us. We find planets circling distant suns, and wonder if someone there is also looking up and asking the same questions. In a way, modern science has given us new myths, stories of big bangs and black holes, and yet these too inspire the same awe the old stories did. They, like the myths of old, remind us that we are part of a grand and mysterious universe. All of these efforts, from the scientific to the spiritual, are part of humanity's enduring conversation with the sky. Now, as our exploration comes to a gentle close, picture one more scene: a sky full of stars stretching over a quiet landscape. Perhaps it is the night sky above the Yucatan jungle, where a Maya priest once tracked the rising of Venus, or the sky over the Andean peaks, where an Inca guardian awaited the first light of dawn. It might be the sky above a wide African plain where acacia trees stand in silhouette, or above a northern forest where the shimmering aurora dances among the stars. Wherever you imagine, it is essentially the same sky, shared by all of them and by us. The constellations we see might bear different names in different tongues, but they are composed of the same stars. The lessons people draw from them vary in detail, yet they tend to point toward the same wisdom, that our lives are part of a grander story written across the heavens. Knowing this can comfort us. When we gaze up, we know that countless others, across continents and ages, have looked at these stars and felt what we feel. Wonder, curiosity, a sense of belonging to something far greater than ourselves. Under this eternal canopy, unbounded by time or distance, we truly share a cosmic legacy. The Temple of the Stars, as we have called it, is not a single structure of stone at all. It is the collective vault of heaven above us, and the accumulated reverence of humanity beneath it. It exists everywhere and at all times, as long as there are those with eyes to see and hearts to marvel. Whenever you or I step outside on a clear night and gaze up in awe, we enter that timeless temple and join the great human dialogue with the cosmos. The stars shining tonight are the same that shone on our ancestors and will shine on our descendants long after we are gone. They are constant, faithful companions in the long journey of existence. They remind us that while life on the ground changes, civilizations rise and fall, languages evolve, technology advances, the sky's patterns endure, linking us to all who came before and all who will come after. Our journey under the stars now ends, but the stars themselves remain, watching over us as they always have. They will continue to rise and set, to mark seasons and inspire stories, long after our voices fall silent. In the stillness that follows, whenever you feel small or alone, you can remember to look upward. The stars will be there, shining their ancient light, whispering that you are part of this vast and beautiful universe. You are part of the grand story that spans from the fireside tales of forgotten ancestors to the dreams of generations yet to come. Under one sky, we have never been truly alone. We have each other, and we have the stars. As we take our leave, may your journey be safe, and your nights forever gentle beneath the eternal stars. Good night.